Maybe. Space Marine 2 has pretty good reviews, 84 on Metacritic, and some folks claim it could be Game of the Year. I don't trust these people at all. After 20 hours, here's my thoughts, and also got the game for free, by the way, from Saber Interactive. I got it, let's try it, and rate it 1 through 10. The initial gameplay loop is really enjoyable. Shooting, slashing, countering, dodging, and iframing attacks. Feels good. For the counters, you can counter basic attacks, but more importantly, the blue attacks. In doing the blue ones, you get a essentially cutscene that has different killing animations, and on the bigger dudes, you counter them and pull out your pistol and get back your own armor, in both cases of the small dudes, big dudes. And this gives you time to look at what's happening, because as you go up in difficulty, you want that time to see what your next move will be. So I like the counters a lot. And you can be mid-melee animation and rip a counter, which is good. You can't be dodging mid-melee attack though. So if you play Monster Hunter, if you play other games that are in the hunting genre, you'll be used to that. I love it because it gives your combat more weight. For the iframes, folks said they didn't have them. You do. There's certain attacks on bosses that are giant AoEs that you may see. Maybe you may think, how am I supposed to dodge this? You dodge into it or with it, either one. And that's an iframe. You can dodge monster attacks. In doing that, you also get this pistol animation, kind of like an execution in a sense, but the bosses don't get one shot like that, that you get more damage off, and iframes as well. So I love the combat in that respect. Campaign cutscenes are pretty freaking sick. The campaign itself, it's nice. Starts off really good. Love the intro to the game in general. The ending, I get lost. I'm not big into the Warhammer lore, so I kind of didn't know what was happening. Character customization. I enjoy you can dye your armor. It's amazing. Weapons I enjoyed: Melta, plasma rifle, pistol, sniper, hammer, power sword, fists, and all the heavy guns. The multi-Melta, the heavy plasma rifle, and heavy bolter. Those are enjoyable. Now for stuff I didn't quite fancy. Difficulty is absurdly arbitrary, which leads into the next 4 points. Lack of ammo, healing, spongy enemies, and grinding for basic quality of life perks you should have out the gate. Doesn't feel great in that respect. Classes feel like they're filler because your abilities don't seem to be that impactful in most cases, and they have absurdly long cooldowns. They just don't really feel like abilities. And classes don't feel that unique unless you maybe get all the perks unlocked. Operations are just campaign missions that you redo a lot. And a lot of times you're waiting around at elevators, at checkpoints. Unless you're on the highest difficulty, you're not facing that many enemies. But the highest difficulty is arbitrary. More on that in a moment. Gameplay loop goes like this. Kill spongy enemies, wait around for objectives, or camp ammo boxes, or search for stims because you have no real way to heal until you get perk upgrades. And PvP isn't a big deal because that mode's tacked on, but there's hit reg issues and there's next to no counterplay. Again, PvP can be taken with a grain of salt. Allow me to explain. There's 4 difficulties and they're essentially poverty simulators. As you go up, the poverty becomes much more severe. On minimal and average, it's the same thing essentially. Enemies are just a bit tankier and deal a bit more damage on average, and stims aren't as good. On substantial, you'll notice that ammunition, stims, grenades are harder to find. Enemies are pretty tanky and deal more damage, a lot more in this case. And stims, I believe, are even less effective than they were on average. And if you get knocked once, you can get revived. After that, you have a 60-second respawn timer, which is manageable. On Ruthless, you will not be able to find ammo boxes in places you really need them. Before you could see them, a giant ammo box you can use unlimited times, which you needed because you don't have ammo to kill things. You can't find that. So instead, you're scavenging for loot all the time. Enemies are sponges. They hit like trucks. Stims heal you for like maybe 25% of your HP. And if you get knocked more than once, you have a 120-second respawn timer. Grinding for quality of life perks goes hand in hand with the classes feeling kind of lackluster. Looking at the heavy class, I am perusing for any way to get healing back and ammunition. At level 10, I get multi-kill. Killing 5 or more enemies with one shot from a multi-melta restores ammo by 1. I'm going to only use this weapon against the Tyranids so I can actually have ammunition and not be scavenging for an ammo box on cooldown. If you watched any gameplay of folks, you'll probably see people hovering around ammo boxes. This is a reason why. And then aside from this, you want to have classes that give you healing back. I think that Vanguard This one gives you healing when killing extremist enemies. Melee finishers of extremist enemies additionally restores a small amount of health for any squad members. It's not a lot of HP, by the way. I'm talking probably 5%. And extremist enemies are the bigger dudes. They're more rare to see as far as I can tell. Sometimes you have cool ones, like on the Bulwark, you have the ability to make a static area. A perfectly timed parry creates a shock area for 5 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. Some cooldowns are pretty long, and some abilities don't last that long, or perk upgrades don't last all that long. Also, tons of perks to just give you damage reduction, increased damage, kind of randomly, and all that to go to higher difficulties to get more experience doesn't feel that impactful. And the higher difficulties have more enemies to shoot at, which is the fun part. So you're literally grinding for hours and hours and hours to get to the enjoyment. I wish that the perk upgrades were more impactful, or the classes are more impactful. Give me less perks, but make them cooler. Not just, okay, damage goes up, you take less damage. Replayability through operations that are already mostly cut and paste from the campaign, and there's only 6 of them, is going to be rather rough for some people. I freaking enjoy decapitation. This mission, Slay the Hive Tyrant. It's a fun time. You get to the end, you face a boss. Reminds me of Dauntless Monster of the World Wild Hearts, but with the Space Marine mechanics. Big fan. I don't believe that all of these have that going on for them, though. Instead, some of these have you waiting around, and it is absurdly boring, especially this Fall of Atreus. This one is terrible. I will avoid this at all costs. Weapon variety is lacking. You have bolter, 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 bolter but burst, bolter but fast fire rate, plasma incinerator, and the melta. And the heavy class has the heavy incinerator, heavy melta, and the heavy bolter, which I do like, don't get me wrong. But the base bolters feel way too similar across the board, and essentially you'll go for the one that gives you the most damage while also having decent ammo capacity. Some folks will be a bit more nitpicky in that sense, but there's not a whole lot of uniqueness going on here. Needless to say, there's a few things that the game could improve on, at least from my perspective. But is it worth buying? And the answer is the same as the beginning. Maybe, perhaps, perchance. If you're a Warhammer fan and you buy the figurines that cost a grip of shekels, you can probably buy this game and have a decent time. But for the non-Warhammer fans, it depends on how you view games. I look at games as from a pretty critical lens. And in this case, it didn't really pass the things I was hoping it would pass. And I'm not here hoping the game falls or fails, by the way. I was really amped to play it. Folks were hyping up like crazy, and I don't believe that their hype ruined it for me. It's just more so the systems and their arbitrary nature that did, and the lack of meaningful variety. That's what is currently putting a damper on my experience. In the future, we could get a horde mode. They talked about that. When that happens, I might hop on and see what's going down. But for right now, I give the game like a 6 out of 10, dude. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a good day. Bye.